sorry about that. But I couldn't miss meeting Colin. Colin Mobey is with me today, and he's an amazing leadership coach. Colin, could you tell us a little bit about your background? This is especially interesting because you have such a different one. So tell us how you came to coaching and what you did before that, how you realized this is your calling.
Yeah, cheers, Anna. Yeah, I'm one of those people who's been in the corporate world, 2 decades in the corporate world, primarily in IT, in tech industries, utilities, that kind of space. But after 20 years and a period of time in the last sort of the 4 or 5 years at the end of that, well, the polite way is to say not enjoying it, but the impolite way is to say it was having an impact on both my physical and mental health, and decided to get out, and then did the usual thing of, I'm out, now what? So I spent the last 4 years or so trying to figure that out, and certainly the last couple of years I went deep with working with individuals, trying to help people that were kind of in the same space as me, that kind of, I hesitate to use a word because it makes me feel old, but that kind of midlife crisis moment where you go, is this it? Is this what it's, is this what it's all about? It's, you know, surely there's more to it than this, and kind of helping people realize, yeah, it is. You can be whatever it can be whatever you want it to be. So I dived into that and refound that kind of love of people again. I'd spent years working, leading teams, building teams, creating teams, but slowly that bit dwindled as politics took over and all that kind of stuff, and just wanted to get back into just helping people. And then the last couple of years, I've realized that I love helping individuals, but it's amazing when you get those individuals together as a group, and then it kind of clear, well, that's a team, isn't it? When they're working towards the same goal. And I've spent the last couple of years refocusing that to kind of help build or rebuild, which I think is really important at the moment with the sheer volume of change that the world's going through, to help rebuild teams that are safer, that are healthier, that still do things quicker, faster, better, but that fundamental principle of looking at the people first. So yeah, it's been a fun few years. Yeah, that's the short version.
That's wonderful. And I know you work with completely different kinds of teams. You've worked even with the London police. What's that about? What do they need? How do they lack leadership?
It's that fascinating thing where you kind of think, well, I only know the IT world. I know how to build products, I know how to build services. So I'll look at those teams, organizations, businesses, which I do. But it turns out that people are people. And, you know, the fundamental pressures that organizations face, whether you're a startup, whether you're in your early life, whether you're maturing, whether you're end of life, whatever it is, those pressures come down to people, the complexity of us as human beings, the amazing wonderfulness of us as human beings, but also the complexity and the drama and all those kind of things. And so it, I don't think anybody who's in the UK could say that the police service is doing wonderfully. There are challenges, but they're the same challenges that every other organisation faces.
Right.
What are they spending their money on? The quality of service they're providing to the public. Retention. They can't keep hold of people that they've got. They can't recruit new people in. It's the same challenges that most organisations, again, no matter your maturity, are facing. And what's interesting about things like the Met, we're working with the prison service as well as IT companies, etc., is the more mature you get, the longer you go on, the harder it is to break some of the habits and the behaviours you've created. So one of the things I do with some of the smaller companies is try and instill this kind of, the earlier you can set out how you want to be, the better, and recognise how important that is. Because if you, no different to technical debt, if you're building a product, if you incur technical debt, it's really hard to unpick that at a certain point. It's the same with people debt, team spirit debt, whatever you want to call it. The longer you leave it, the harder it is to unpick. And there comes a point where you go, it would be easier to throw it away and build a new product. There comes a point with technical debt where it's too expensive to fix it. We might as well start again. And it's the same. You don't want to get to that point with people, because that's a horrible place to be, where you want to throw that away and start again. So it doesn't matter what your organization is. I love geeky stuff. I'm a geek at heart. So I love the IT stuff, but people are people. And there's so much. I'm a bit of an agile nerd, so there's so much that's transferable from what the software world has done It's, well, why can't other organizations, other systems, other services take advantage of that? So
Absolutely.
so yeah, I'm as surprised as anybody. If you just said to me 5 years ago you'll be working with the police, with the prison service, with wholesale retailers, but no, IT. But I did a geography degree and went straight into IT. So what do I know? What do I know?
Okay. Okay. I was a chef once, so.
My daughter, we were just talking about my daughter, and she's 17 next week. And you know, some of the stats are, I mean, there's stats about half the jobs they're going to do haven't been invented yet, let alone, but the sheer number of careers they're going to have, not jobs, but different disciplines, different careers, is going to blow my generation out of the water. So it's fascinating that, you know, there's still this kind of, you'll be a policeman, you'll be a software engineer, you'll be a tester, and you'll follow a narrow path. You'll be a lawyer, you'll be a journalist, you'll be a crafts person. You can be whatever you want and change whatever you want. So
absolutely,
yeah, figuring out how to embrace that. As I said, people are complicated.
Yes, but do you feel like you often are approached by teams when it's a bit too late, when, you know, they're just dragging this down and they're oblivious to their problems, or they don't want to change because, you know, they're a startup and they want this core team to remain until the exit, or, you know, until they are a unicorn? Is that the case? Or startup teams are a bit more mature this way and they come to you earlier on to try and solve this problem before it's too late?
It's easy to generalize. So the easy answer is yes, that there is generally a point where it's really hard to unpick. It's not impossible, but actually the implications can be really hard and they can have significant impact on people. So, you know, there's a lot of people, again, that have been made redundant, and actually that scars them depending on how it was handled. And it makes it really hard for them to integrate, get involved in a new organization, a different, no matter the maturity. But again, everybody's different and everybody's experience is different. So sometimes, most of the time, the longer you've been together, the harder it is to unpick those behaviors. But there are exceptions to that. There are organizations that have been together a long time, but are used to change, and they've done it in such a way that actually they go looking for it rather than waiting for it to happen. Again, that comes down to the, I hesitate to use the word culture because it's just a horrible word that's been corporatized and just means nothing, but it comes down to the team spirit is what I prefer. It's kind of that reason you get up and come to work and want to spend time with those people. And if you can figure that out and keep that going, it's not about getting it right early, it's about keep asking questions about whether you're getting it right. Quite often what I see is that, well, if organizations that are more mature tend to want a silver bullet, well, we've got these problems with our teams, what can we do to fix it? As opposed to saying, what can we do to keep having conversations with our team, to keep adapting, to keep looking at our team spirit, to notice when it's gone down, to notice, to do different things to bring it up. We do it with products and services. We have iterations, we have version numbers, we do all sorts of things. We get feedback and we adapt to the context of what's going on. But we don't do that with our teams very often. Kind of, right, you're a team that works in this way, good, go. And then 3 years later, we look back and go, why is the team not working as well as it used to? We did that during the pandemic. This is how you worked. We changed the local to remote for a lot of organizations, but we assumed they would just work in the same way. And we're confused as to why different things happened. Some people loved it, some people didn't, all that kind of stuff. And actually things are always changing. So why not, you should be iterating your team spirit as well. Right.
Okay. But, another question is, you're a startup, you're founders, you're co-founders, and you're so excited about your product. Well, basically, you're building your dream idea, you're building your dream team and everything. How can you not enjoy it? So when it's the right time to actually maybe hold back a little bit and take a look at what's going on in the team, do you have to do it from the very first day? Or I don't know, what's your approach to that? What's your best leadership advice in this case?
My approach is to ask those questions you just asked. Again, every team is different, and every team is different at different times. A lot of startups really embrace the experimental mindset. So we've got this idea, we think this is what will work, let's test it in the market, let's get feedback, let's iterate it. We don't know whether we get feedback weekly or monthly or every version drop or every major version drop. They ask lots of questions and they adapt how they work based on those questions. So the way to do it with your team is to ask the same questions. How often should we discuss? Should we discuss it every day? Probably feels a bit overkill in the early stages, once a week. Again, if you look at, so apologies for digging into things like agile principles, but if you look at, most startups do this kind of iterative approach. So if you look at kind of the concept of sprint planning and retrospective, we'll plan what we're going to do over a certain period of time. Then we'll step back after a certain period of time and we'll reflect on how that worked. Some teams will do it weekly, some will do it fortnightly, some will do it monthly. Tends to get a bit risky if you do it longer than that, but they find their own cadence. For some, they want to do it weekly. For others, they want to do it fortnightly. It doesn't matter. It's this, the thing I focus on is the toilet roll. So take a toilet roll. Do you prefer a toilet roll to unroll away from the wall? Or do you prefer a toilet roll to unroll towards the wall? The honest answer is it doesn't matter. It only matters to you which way you prefer it to unroll. But that's a preference. Teams, we shouldn't inflict. You don't see a leader going around and saying, right, all our toilet rolls and all our toilets are going to unroll this way. They don't care. It just, whichever roll. But that is a preference that you prefer. So start asking about the preferences in your team. Don't inflict preferences. Right, we're going to work fortnightly or weekly, and we'll have every week we'll get together and discuss how the team spirit is. What's your preference? What's your preference, team? Do we want to do it weekly? Do you want to do it fortnightly? Do we want to do that then for 3 months and then we'll take a breath and see how it feels? Ask, what is your preference on how we do this? We do it for our products. We do it for our services. Why don't we do it for our people? Why don't we intentionally build these rituals, ceremonies, whatever you want to call it, these iterations, and ask what we prefer? And then change it when we need to change it. Absolutely. If there's a period of time where you're doing a lot of recruitment, you might want to switch from monthly to weekly to build a bit of a closer rapport. Context matters. So again, ask questions. You know, as founders, we're brilliant at asking questions about the product, because generally speaking, a founder is really invested in the product. They kind of thought of this idea. They might even have engineered it to some point. But they're really invested in that. So they ask a lot of questions about, will this work? Do people want this? What are the problems? What's the pain it's going to solve? Just refocus that curiosity to the people around you. It's the same skill. It's just, you're going to get, it's just to a different point. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I have another question, because, you know, I also had an experience being a co-founder, and I'm going to dig into that a little bit. I'm going to tell you a story a bit later, but in a startup, usually, you know, you have maybe 2-3 people and everyone's super engaged. Everyone wants, you know, their ideas to be heard, or they want to be involved, basically. They are the core team, right? But what if there are so many personalities, and what if one person is just not a leader? You know, they're not born leaders, and they don't want to basically lead anything. They just want to do a good job. So for example, they are, I don't know, CTO, and those guys usually, you know, they want to build, they want to focus on the product, they don't want to build, they don't want to lead your team. So how to basically restructure this your team spirit, and how to make sure that these people, they don't lead, but they still feel needed and powerful, because, you know, at some point they may feel like they're not doing enough, or their contribution is not as big. So how to deal with that, how to make sure everyone's involved, even though, you know, they don't want to lead, and they don't want to basically be a leader in the team.
Firstly, what's really important is to separate leader and leadership. Leader
Okay.
has become really attached to the concept of a position. So like I said, chief technical officer, founder, head of, lead this, lead architect, all that kind of stuff. It's become really attached to a position. That's irrelevant. The job title is irrelevant. Leadership is a skill. And I would argue that everybody, no matter what their job title, needs to use the skill of leadership at different times. Some more often than others, some less. But certainly the more integral you are to the delivery of a product or a service, the more you need to use leadership. But that doesn't mean that gets attached to things like you said, leading people. What does that mean? Is that doing performance reviews, discussing pay, dealing with absence, sickness, all that kind of stuff? Or is that steering, influencing, supporting, mentoring, coaching? A CTO that wants to work on the product, that just wants to roll their sleeves up, still needs input from other techies, from other analysts, from testers, from market research, from data designers, from database design, all sorts of different things. They cannot generally produce, one person cannot build a house, but right. the architect will show leadership to the building team about where to put things, etc. But they'll also input, so they'll need to follow. Leadership, teamship, followership. They are three really important skills. And what's important is you have conversations about where best to show those skills. Hi, I'm a techie. I get that I need to show some leadership, but what I'd rather do is do followership. So you set the direction, I'll go and code. And I'll get teamship, so I need to get these other people involved. I need to work out how best to be sensitive to their needs, etc. But leadership, well, I'd like to influence the design, so I need to show some leadership with the designers, okay? And right. Talking about those kind of things. If you were, again, trying to think of I'm not very good at sporting analogies because I'm not that sporty, but if you think about a football team, my position is striker. But there are times when I'm going to need to come back and defend with the defensive team. So I need to understand the defensive skill and be clear when I'm acting in that position. But most of the time I'm going to act as a striker, and vice versa if you're a defender. But you talk about each team will do that in different ways at different times. When the team's attacking, do I always come back, or do I only do it during set pieces? You have those conversations to work out. I nearly said best practice, which was falling into a corporate trap, but effective practice, useful practice, and then you just keep adapting. So those things are great conversation starters. We seem to be scared of having that conversation. The CTO will sit there going, well, it's on my job description to lead the team, rather than going, can we have a conversation about that? Because I can do that, but I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to tire me out. I'm going to get stressed out. There's an honesty there in terms of if you said you could do that when you took the role or whatever, that needs to be thought through and explored. But this is a harsh truth, but there are a lot of people out there in the wrong roles. And that,
absolutely.
I mean, in terms of they've got the wrong job, or they might just have the wrong title. That doesn't mean they should leave. It means honest conversations need to happen. Most stress, which then leads to burnout, happens because you're in the wrong role at the wrong time. And that's a really harsh truth to kind of realize. Certain things can be adapted. Once you acknowledge that, things might be able to change, or it might be, I need to go and do a different role. But if you can't acknowledge that, it's only going to go one way.
Right. Oh, and so I can share with you my story of being a co-founder, and that was actually the second time I did that. The first time went very well, but the second time, so first of all, we were a remote team, and like you said, it's not the same, right? We cannot just sit there and assume that it's gonna work. So we kind of did that. We fell into this trap because I found my co-founder when he was already building the product. And he knew all about it. He was the CTO and the CEO. And we kind of agreed that I'm going to join as a CMO. So yeah, I was all, super excited, very pumped to jump to the project and, do my best. He's been doing it for a couple of years and was a bit burned out already. So we didn't really align, the feeling of the project didn't really align. And when I wanted, action, 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 he wanted to, just reflect and look at the bigger picture. And then when we switched, because I'm this kind of a person when I want things done fast, and when they're not done fast, I kind of cool off, and then, it takes time for me to get back on. So yeah, then we switched. Oops. Oh, sorry.
That's right. Oh,
Okay.
we're back.
Okay, we're back. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So yeah, we got into this awesome accelerator program, and it seemed like I should have been maybe more active about that, but the accelerator program was closed. I didn't have access to any materials, so I was kind of bored, and yeah, and again, there was no alignment whatsoever. And yeah, we called each other now and then. And then one day, we were like, okay, we need to talk. And I instantly knew that, this is when we're going to, break up, basically. So yeah, and that happened. And actually, I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to be very upset about it. But I really wasn't. At that time, I think I felt that I'm dragging us down so badly that I kind of need to step down for that project to go on. So yeah, I think could we do something better? Could we split up earlier? Probably yes. You're right. We could have talked earlier and decide that we're not a good match here. But what's your maybe do you have some suggestions? What could we do before that happened? Because we have been working together, I think 5 months. Yeah. And on the 5th, we just, boom, it was a big explosion. It wasn't negative. I still support the project 100%. And the founder is a great guy, but we just don't work together anymore. So what could have been done if anything?
What you described is a relationship. And okay, so when you think about the best relationships and the worst relationships, most of the best and the good ones come down to communication. It comes down to we got on, or we gelled, or there's something special there. And the longer that goes on, that either continues or it gets better. It changes, but it gets better, or it changes and it gets worse. And usually when it gets worse, it's because we don't talk anymore. And it's no different, whether it's business, whether it's romantic, whether it's friendship, whether it's performance improvement based or personal development based. It's the relationship. And when you click to that, and you can become a bit more intentional about that, not overboard in terms of, right, here's 100 questions, answer them, and I want to check that we match and all that kind of stuff, but just exploring things exactly as you would do as if you're on a date or whatever. What do you love doing? What do you not love doing? Right. All those kind of things. And from a more business perspective, you can start to, I love rolling my sleeves up and getting stuck in. I love those moments where I'm out for a walk and the idea, everything clicks together. We're quite different people. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to work well together, but understanding that means, our points of conflict then are likely to be, I'm detail, and you're big picture. That's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just a thing. What should we do about that? What should we notice about that? We did, I was working with an organization a while ago, just doing this little exercise. Do a lot of stuff with Lego, because I love Lego, and a friend, business partner, loves Lego. And we just did this small thing about build a duck. Here's 7, everybody had 7 Lego bricks. build a duck. One of the people used 3 bricks, literally 4 seconds, bang, bang, duck. And he was looking around at everybody else going, what are you doing? Everybody else was trying to use all 7 bricks, because you've given me 7 bricks, I'll use all 7 bricks. There was one other guy, built a duck,
Right.
and then he was on his phone. And we thought, is he checking emails? What he was actually doing was Googling best way to make a duck. He was the perfectionist. He was like, no, there must be the perfect way to make a duck. So in this team, you've got one guy that's gone, really quickly, I made a duck. You told me to make a duck. Why are we wasting time looking for other options? And at the other extreme, you've got the guy going, no, there's a better duck. There's a better duck. We can make a better duck. So you've got this immediate conflict. And as soon as they kind of spotted that, they all went, that's why you're like that. That's why you get frustrated when you do that. And you don't have to solve anything, you don't have to do anything, but that understanding of who we are, that who is really important. Particularly as founders, we focus on the what are we going to do? When are we going to do it? What's the product going to look like? All the questions around the what. We start to look at the how often are we going to do it? How are we going to build the team? Are we going to be remote? Are we going to be local? How are we going to get investment? All that kind of stuff. We've certainly the last decade, we moved towards why. Why is that important? Why is that important for me? Why is that important for the team? Why is that important for our customers? The why's become the Simon Sinek sort of generation. What I want to do and what I believe is fundamental to the next evolution is looking at the who. That underpins all of that. Who you are influences why you do things, which influences how you do things, which should shape what you're doing. And that's where the what, like you said, that CTO, they were perhaps doing the wrong what because they didn't understand their who. And once you can start to understand who you are, then you'll start to understand who the people around you are. And again, you can just then adapt to that. But like I say, that duck thing suddenly revealed those kind of certain traits of people. Right, I can be a bit more patient, but also you can be a bit more understanding of this. Okay. And you don't have to do stuff, but just deepen that understanding. Once you've opened that, you can't, once you've turned that on, you can't switch it off.
Oh, we have, we're all meeting, the entire team is meeting soon in one place, finally. So I guess we're going to do the duck thing. It's going to be really...
Lego. Break out some Lego.
Yeah.
Nothing else is Lego.
Yeah. I mean, my son loves Lego, so we're probably bringing quite a bit. So yeah, we're going to start building.
I've always got Lego on hand.
Oh wow, that's a bit too advanced.
You can see my son's room; it's just wall to wall Star Wars Lego.
Oh wow,
we're not
super
sure.
Cool. But coming back to, I don't know, I don't want to sound egocentric, but coming back to my to my case.
It's all about you.
Do you believe in remote teams? Can co-founders basically find each other online, I don't know, Y Combinator, and start working together without, knowing each other, just, believing in the product, believing in the idea? Is that possible? Have you seen co-founders working great in this setting?
During the pandemic, so I'm going to go on a tangent here and I'll bring it back. During the pandemic, lots of relationships broke down. People got divorced, people separated, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Lots of disruption to romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Every single one of those was not in a good place before the pandemic. If you were in a good place before the pandemic, the chances are you weathered the pandemic. If you were not, it added extra pressure. So the problem isn't remote teams. The problem isn't local teams. The problem isn't hybrid teams. The problem is, how is your team doing? Things like remote it adds nuance. It adds difference. But it is absolutely possible to have an amazing team spirit, to be incredibly productive, to grow and develop in any set of circumstances. What you need to be is creative with the ways you do that. So I quite often hear, well, it used to be easy. When we were in the same office, we'd get up, get a coffee, chat, and then come back. And that helped us gel. and I say, well, that's lucky you got up to go for a coffee at the same time. What if you never met in the kitchen? What happens then? Oh, well, no, I said, oh, do you fancy a coffee? We go get coffee. Cool. Why can't you do that on Slack? You're chatting on Slack. When you go, I'm just going to get a coffee. Fancy a FaceTime? What's different about that other than, you've got to ask somebody to go for a coffee. The process is the same. Ask if you want to go for a coffee, go for a coffee, chat, go back to work. The process, what you just need to do is do something different to get the process to work. When, I'm showing my age here. When I started my first corporate job, the office had a bar. There was a bar built into the office. You didn't have to go to the pub. You could go to the bar and people would go there at lunchtime. Very different time period. Very quickly that stopped. But people were like, well, now if the bar's going, we're not going to get together. We're not going to talk. That kind of gelling is going to disappear. It's not going to be the same. They put in free coffee machines. And that was where people went. And it took, it just adapted the behavior to, they kept the ritual. They just changed the way the ritual worked. When I stopped drinking about 4 years ago, and when I got home from work, that would be open a bottle of wine or bottle that was open at the fridge, pour a glass, and that would be where Claire and I, my wife, would chat. That's where we would download the day, talk about the kids, talk about work, whatever. One of us would usually be cooking over the glass of wine. When I stopped drinking, we stopped doing that because the ritual stopped. And it took us, we've been together 26 years, so it didn't take long for us to figure that out. But we replaced that ritual with making a pot of tea.
Yeah.
We've switched that to coffee. We now make a cup of coffee, and we make a nice cup of coffee and various things. So we kept the ritual. So what rituals are important to your team? You might need to change them as you move from local to remote to hybrid or back again in different ways. But respect the ritual.
Absolutely.
A tech team I worked with pre and during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, they would spend their breaks playing card games. They're all young kids. They weren't kids, but compared to me, they were young people, and they love I love card games, to be fair. And they would do that. Few weeks into the pandemic, I really missed that. I sat there on Zoom with them and said, you do realize this game is online as well. And you could see their brains, this is techies, this is IT people going, oh yeah, we could play it online, couldn't we, through Zoom? And just, it sounds really obvious, but they just hadn't thought. They missed playing cards. Find a different way to do it. Sometimes you can just again, going back to that point of, you'll have a sprint planning session for your product, have a team spirit planning session. What will work this month? What can we try this month to bring us a bit closer together? One organization I worked with tried cooking lunch. They were in different countries, so all spread out over the world. So they, once every fortnight, they would select a lunch. So they had notice to go buy the ingredients or chat with each other if this wasn't available in that country or whatever. Can I use this instead? And then together they would get on a Zoom call and make that, there was rules, it had to be less than 15 minutes. They would make that lunch together and talk through that lunch. It worked for some, it didn't work for others, but they were experimenting with different ways. We put the effort into it. It feels easier when we're together, but I know just as many teams that don't talk, don't get together, only talk by Slack or email, even though their teammates 10 feet down the thing, down the corridor, they still, I'll send them Slack.
Yeah.
So that existed before the idea of remote. It's not remote that's a problem. It's not hybrid that's a problem. It's your team spirit. So
absolutely,
get the situation. What do you want to do to improve your team spirit, to build team spirit, to keep team spirit going? Then figure it out.
Right. Oh, I actually had a situation once when I was sitting just across the table from a colleague, and I asked her about something, and she was like, okay, yeah, but could you send me that in Slack? Because now I'm busy. And I was like, oh my God, but I'm chatty. Okay, yes, I like to talk, but yeah, I'm not going to bother you every time, just this one question. But that was very, I don't know, eye-opening to to the fact that this is a bit of a different culture to me. Not this job, of course, but a very different one. but still a very interesting experience. Anyway, but how do you identify the blind spots in teams? So basically, when a team feels that something is off, and you enter, and do they ask you to observe? Do they just explain what's going on? So how do you identify what's missing, what should be done, and basically whose duck is faster?
It's all about the ducks. There's a couple of ways. There's some new assessments. They're psychometrics, but I don't like the word because again, it comes with connotations from, oh, let's do Myers-Briggs, or let's do this, and you're a blue square. No, but there's some cutting edge psychometrics that we're using, which is about the experience you're having. So the key thing is, I don't know. The only person who knows the experience they're having is you. You're the only person who knows the experience you're having. I'm the only person who knows the experience I'm having. So you've got to figure out how to draw that out. There's some psychometrics that we use, which is incredibly insightful and kind of opens up a conversation, because this is you telling yourself what your experience is. You can't get away from it. It's not me telling you how you're feeling, what you're doing. It's you telling yourself. And from there, and I appreciate it sound like a broken record, it's about a conversation. There is only one answer to this stuff. And that's not, talk about everything and have big, deep, meaningful conversations about everything. It's finding, again, different ways to talk about stuff. That person you just talked about there, sometimes you need to know, right, now's not the time to chat. Let's be focused, work, done. Other times you can relax and move into it. It's working out when those times are. So the answer to that question is draw it out of the individual. Coaching is underrated, from a leadership, as a leadership skill, coaching, being curious, not seeking to solve, but seeking to deepen understanding, which will eventually lead to a solution rather than, right, you're feeling like that, you need to do this. Why are you feeling like that? Why do you think? What do you want to do about that? Where could that come from? What else could that come from? What would it be like if that wasn't a problem? All coachy stuff, but that kind of approach. But you need something to start with. A lot of these organizations I've talked about, we've done this assessment and it's very quick, but it gives you that insight. But you've got to start not with the founder's view of what the team's doing. I'll talk to a lot of leadership teams, go, our team's struggling. Oh, how do you know? Well, the KPIs are down. Okay, so how's the team feel about that? Well, I think they're tired. Okay, have you asked them? Well, they look tired. Okay, is that because of work, or is there something going on in their home life? And I don't know. And so you need data, you need facts, you need truth. Doesn't mean you go in guns blazing with, right, what's going on? Tell me the truth. How's it going? How's your marriage? How's your kids? What do you think about your job? It's building that relationship, and it's being curious. It's listening to understand rather than listening to solve or demand or inflict. And it's really hard to do that, especially in the current climate with all the challenges, with all the problems we face. But ultimately, the only way to, again, be safe through that, to be healthy through that, and to get stuff sooner and better is to take interest in the people around you and in yourself. You can't care about others if you don't care about yourself. It's a little bit of a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason.
Right.
It's
absolutely agree.
It's not selfish. It's not disrespectful. You've got to look after yourself, and particularly the importance that gets attached to a role like a founder. You set the tone. That changes over time as the team grows, but the ideas person, the owner of that idea, sets the tone, and they get to decide whether, do I want everybody like me? Do I want them to be different? Do I want them to balance stuff out? You set that tone. I believe that needs to change over time. It needs to come from the people doing the work rather than top down. But to start with, it comes very much from the ideas person. What you want to do is nearly did a corporate phrase there of buy-in, but you want to get that involvement from everybody so that then the ideas come from the inside out rather than top down. Then the founder's not going to be so burnt out, so tired, so stressed. They might not be enjoying it, and they might go, actually, you know what? I want to go and do that thing I did somewhere else now, because the thing I'm good at, I can't add anything here. They're amazing. They're doing it themselves. I'll go over here and do it. But knowing yourself is the first step to knowing others.
Right. And I know that you have a partner, you have a co-founder to your business. So how is it going with YouTube? What kind of leadership advice, or I don't know, leadership I don't know, rules or teamship you have there? How do you structure it? Because as far as I can see, you are very engaged and engaging, and you're very you have this very big personality. So how do you work with this around your partner?
We talk a lot. So one of the models I operate at the moment is, having come out of that corporate world, at the moment I don't want the rigidity and formality of a structure. I want to choose who I work with. I spent 20 years being told who to work with. Or I was an exec and could pick certain things, but it was still, no, you must use Deloitte or Accenture, right, or you must use IBM, or you must use HP. One of those, all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, I want to use that little boutique consultancy over there because they're really nice people and they're really good. And trying to prove that just took too much effort. So now I'm at the point where I want to work with you. Love to work with you. Love to work with you. Why don't we do that? So just partnerships, that kind of relationship stuff again, how that falls out is fine. So all those people, people like Tasha, David, and various others, we talk a lot. We eat a lot of cake. It seems to be a common thing with people I find.
What's your favorite?
You like cake? Coffee and walnut. I've had some coffee and walnut today. Okay. I was chatting with David and their client.
Lucky you.
But it's about, there's this kind of weird thing about work-life balance, and for me it's not about that. It's about, the word balance is wrong. It's about balancing. It's about the ing on the end. It's about being aware of what's going on, when to lean into the work stuff, when to lean into the life stuff, when it's okay to be in the middle, and all that kind of stuff. So the constant, I'm a bit of a yoga nut. I do a lot of yoga, and yoga isn't about balance. It's about you're constantly balancing. You're constantly sat there in a pose, just making micro adjustments, listening to your body, listening to your breathing, being aware. You get better at holding the pose because you're responding. Your muscles are reacting, balancing all the time. It's not about balance. It's about balancing. And it's the same with relationships. It's just listening. It's just, sometimes it's about me. As you were talking about that. It was all about you earlier. Sometimes it's all about David or about Tasha. Sometimes it's about both of us. And it's just being open about that. Today, we got together with a client, but after that, it was very quickly, right, is this and this? Who wants to do what?
Right.
I'm better at this stuff, but do you want to, I'd love to do this stuff. Yeah, you go for that. Again, it's just that honesty. And there's a book I love called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. I prefer the phrase kind candor, but this ability to care about something, but also to challenge, to have that conflict, but in a caring way. And that takes practice. There have been times when I've said stuff to people and gone, I've annoyed you there. I'll use a clean word for the time of the day. I've annoyed you there, haven't I? Yeah, didn't mean to. What should I have done? What should I have said? And likewise with David. With Tasha, there's a lot of remote stuff, so we get together. There's tools we use, Notion boards, Kanban boards, whatever, figuring that out together. I love this sort of stuff. What about you? I'm a bit of a geek, so I'll use a different app every week if I can to manage stuff. I need to be reined in with that stuff, which is good because other people are more stable. So it's figuring that. Again, I sound like a broken record, but it's figuring that stuff out. The excitement of working together with somebody, that new relationship, is brilliant, and that energy can sustain you. But there comes a point where you need to work out some logistical stuff. Again, no different to dating. This is exciting. This is cool. But you live in Holland, and I live in the UK. How can we make that work? There comes a point where you've got to look at the practical things, but instead of jumping to that, just bit by bit, iterate again. Yeah. Look at something. How did that go? And just keep doing that. Be more intentional about it. But yeah, cake is a great one. Cake is, I won't work with anybody who doesn't like cake.
Okay, I guess, well, that may have been the most important lesson in leadership that you've got to give, but still, what's the most important leadership lesson that you've learned and that you use and that you would love to share with the rest of us?
It's about the who. It really is about that relationship, that connection with yourself and with other people. If you can take some time, some space, create some time, create some space to just ask questions of yourself, ask questions of others, not with any expectation, just to create a bit more space, create a bit more thinking, create a bit more understanding. It's amazing where that leads to. It's like I said, that 5-minute exercise with Lego ducks opened up, and it's not that will work for everybody, but eventually you'll land on something that allows people to go, I can see how that can help me. None of the best ideas come from when nobody ever says, I had this amazing idea when I was sat replying to emails. Nobody ever says that. They only ever say it when I was out walking or was in the shower, when they had a bit of space, when their brain wasn't full. And the thing that gives you the energy to join those dots is your connection with other people. And the world is getting bigger. The world is getting more noisy, more complicated. So building relationships that matter is really important. So that focus on the who is what is going to really shift us. Whether you're a founder, but these new companies are the opportunity to do things better. We've screwed it up quite a lot. We need to do things differently. It's a real opportunity when starting something new. Doesn't mean that we need to throw the baby out of the bathwater. There are plenty of opportunity for more mature organizations, but founding new organizations got the opportunity to do it in a different way. And that's not just the process, but how we are as people during that process. And that's really important. So yeah, focus on the who. The how, and the why come secondary. Start with the who, then go to the why, then go to the how, then go to the what, not the other way around. That's the biggest thing over the last few years.
Awesome. Okay. I mean, I completely agree with you. And I mean, I have the best experience in working in a team where, we focus on what we do best and kind of give each other freedom to, to shine there. So yeah, absolutely. And whenever we have a meeting, we can actually bring a piece of cake or something. So yeah, very cool. I think we've learned something from you even before, because I don't know, I think I didn't mention that, but I met Colin during the pitch club of Martin Barnes, and that's when I saw him pitch for the first time. And I thought, oh my God, I should absolutely talk to him and absolutely, bring him to all of you, because he talks, amazing stuff, and we could all learn about it. So yeah, Colin, I mean, if you have anything else to add, I would love to hear that.
I mean, I've got tons to add. I'm here all day. I got another call in 10 minutes, but
Sure.
I think we've covered the key things. That don't treat your team any different to your product or your service that you're building, developing. That concept of iteration, that concept of asking questions, of reflecting on how things are going. You talked about your team recognizing what they're good at, what they enjoy, and then doing that. That can change. Talking about the Met Police that I worked with earlier, there was a team that one of the people, they I won't say enjoy because it's the wrong impression, but they were really fulfilled by talking to the public and giving them bad news. They enjoyed that connection of being there for that person, supporting them with bad news about traffic accidents or whatever. The rest of the team, like, oh God, I hate that. No, yeah, brilliant. You do that. That's brilliant. But there came a point where the woman was like, I know I said I like this, but I need a break from it. So context is important again. Keep checking in. Do you how are you going? Still doing that? Are you still getting the same buzz from it, or do we need to tweak things for a short period, or take a break, or try something different? Keep asking questions. Don't get set in. This team works brilliantly this way. Things will change. Things happen outside. People, life changes, hobby changes, physical changes. All sorts of things happen. So, if somebody has kids, we adapt, we ask questions about, oh, do we need to tweak things for a period of time while stuff's happening? But it's the same thing with stuff that comes from the inside out as well. It's not just external stuff. Internally, we change as well. Our personalities, our interests, our passions, they're not set, they change. And so keep being curious. Don't do it once, keep being curious. But you've got the right dynamic. You've started in the right way. So it's not hard to keep going in that direction. So yeah, that's the only thing I'd add. Again, that iteration, that recognize stuff changes.
Okay. Oh my God, that was awesome. I mean, I think we all learned a ton here today. So thank you so much, Colin. And if you want to see him again, he's often at the Pitch Club, right? There is another one happening in next week, I think.
It's a couple of weeks, yeah, because Martin's taking a break. So yeah, a couple of weeks. It's either the 11th or the 18th. Definitely the 18th.
Okay. Anyway, yes, that's the place where you can see Colin again, or just I'm going to just go ahead and recommend them to email you or contact you via LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is my favorite place. The only social media platform I'm on, and LinkedIn. I spend a fair amount of time on LinkedIn. So yeah, LinkedIn's the best. There's a website, colinmobey.com, but LinkedIn is the best place to have a conversation. I love LinkedIn.
Oh, right. And he was the best replying to my needy messages. So yeah. Sorry about that, Colin.
No, it's all good. Again, it's communication, isn't it? It's communication.
Yes,
it's all good.
Yes, true. But yeah, thank you so much for being with us today. And next week, on the 12th, yes, we will have Patrick from Colpix, a very, very unique project that was built on Mars, and we're going to tell you about it. It's also from London, so we're going to tell you about that, and yeah, save the date.
Cool.
Thank you,
Same
Colin.
time next week.
Yes. So yeah, hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Colin, and have a good week.